you back on at the very end, okay? Samuel, I'm afraid I'm taking you away, so nothing personal, but I'll pick you up as soon as we're done, okay? All right. Well, it's 6 o'clock, and it is my privilege to welcome you and wish you Shabbat Shalom. I'm Rabbi Feinstein, joined this afternoon by my dear friend Cantor Herschel Fox to welcome you for a little Shabbos davening. It's been a tough week in our community, so it is a real privilege to be together to pray and to study a little bit, to learn a little bit, and to begin the Shabbos together. Herschel, maybe we begin with a nigun or a song, something to get us into Shabbos mood.
Absolutely. Shalom Aleichem Malachei Hasharet Malachei Elyon Mimelech Malachei HaMelachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moachem L'Shalom Malachei HaShalom Malachei Elyon Mimelech Malachei HaMelachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Baruchuni l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon, mimelech, malachei hamelachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Etzeitchem l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon, mimelech, malachei hamelachim, hakadosh baruch hu.
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome. We're so glad to have you with us together, and so glad to be able to finish this week and welcome the Shabbos together. It's been a difficult week at Valley Beth Shalom. We've had a number of very touching and difficult losses, including loss of Malka Schulweiss, who was such a wonderful teacher in our community, a matriarch of a community, and loss of some other friends this week. So it's good to be together to affirm life and to celebrate the Shabbos. We're going to be davening this evening from the blue Sidur Sim Shalom. You'll find a copy of it on the VBS website if you click on VBS at home. We begin Kabbalat Shabbat on page 15, Lechu Neranina.
Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina, l'Adonai. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina, l'Adonai. Naria, letzor yishenu, nikadem afanav betodah. Naria, letzor yishenu, bizmirot naria lo. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, l'Adonai. Lechu neranina, l'Adonai.
We were a pilgrimage people, which means that part of Jewish faith was making pilgrimage. And according to the Torah, you're supposed to do it 3 times a year. But according to the history book, Jews did it once a year. They would make pilgrimage to Jerusalem. Now, pilgrimage is a marvelous idea. It's a trip you take. But the purpose of the trip is to take an outward journey so that you can have an inward journey. And if you can imagine what this is like, so imagine you're coming to Jerusalem to stand in the presence of God, to stand together with the entire community, to stand together with Jews the world over. And as you approach, you're meeting other communities of Jews coming from other places in the world, and we march together and we walk together. And the last stretch of the march, I remember this because I actually did this walk when I was in college, is you start at the bottom. It's at about a 10-mile walk at the bottom of the hill, and you march up to Yerushalayim, up to Jerusalem. And it's steep in some places. So in order to keep the cadence, you'd sing a song. And the song of the marching up to Jerusalem is preserved in the book of Psalms. You'll find it on page 19. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu lahar kodsho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. We're rising up. And as we walk up the hill and as we sing together, you feel something inside of you rising up. Your spirits are rising. Your aspirations are rising. Your hopes are rising. And a sense of joy is rising up. And it's this psalm that the tradition gave us to welcome us as we rise up toward the gift of Shabbat. Page 19, Cantor.
Romemu Adonai Romemu Adonai Eloheinu. Romemu Adonai, Romemu Adonai Eloheinu. Adonai Eloheinu Romemu Adonai Romemu Adonai Romemu Adonai Eloheinu. Adonai Eloheinu Romemu Ve'yishtachavu Le'al Kodesho Ve'yishtachavu Le'al Kodesho Ve'yishtachavu Le'al Kodesho Adonai Eloheinu Romemu Romemu Adonai Romemu Adonai Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Eloheinu Romemu Yishtachavu le'ar kodesho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu.
The great problem that medieval philosophy, Jewish and Christian and Muslim, tried to deal with was, how could you imagine that a God who is perfect and a God who is all powerful and a God who is all benevolent could end up creating a world as broken and as corrupt and as deceitful as the world that we live in? This was the great problem. And the problem became especially acute in 1492, when the last of the great Spanish Jewish community was exiled. This was once, in the 11th, 12th century, the greatest Jewish community there ever was. And the community was limited, and it was tortured, and it was run out of town, basically, and finally expelled by Ferdinand and Isabel from the city of Granada, which was the last stronghold of Jewish life, in 1492. And the refugees from Spain spread all over Europe and all over the Ottoman Empire. And a great community of them, particularly the scholars, and particularly the mystics, ended up in the northern Israeli city of Tzfat. It's a beautiful town in the north, situated on a lovely mountaintop not far from the Sea of Galilee, where the air is crisp and clear. The winters are cold, but the summers are warm and inviting. And it was a beautiful place. And in that community, there grew up a whole community of scholars who worked on this problem. Why is the world the way it is? And among them, there rose a young man, sort of the Mozart of the Jewish tradition, because he died very, very young, but he revolutionized the whole philosophical scene of Jewish thought. His name was Isaac Luria. And Luria said that the problem of the Jews, the problem of humanity in a broken world, is a reflection of a problem in God himself. And when we think about God, within God, there was a crisis. And the crisis within God was that God's loving side, God's gentle side, God's feminine side became separated from God's powerful side, God's creative side, God's masculine side. God had a psychological breakdown, basically. And what we need to do in order to heal the world is to heal God. And how do we heal God? Through the mitzvot of the Torah, through the prayers we say, but done with a certain kavanah of bringing all the pieces of the world together as one. That's the origin of the notion of tikkun olam. Before it became a slogan for social justice, it was a religious quest to heal God and in that way to heal the world. And when is the best time to do this? Well, the best time is on Shabbat. Because on Shabbat, the forces that keep apart God's justice and God's power and God's gentleness, those forces, the separating forces, are themselves quelled. And we can affect the union of God's gentleness, God's compassion, and God's power. And we can do it within ourselves too. Our own gentleness and our own power becomes one. And the beautiful symbol of this is a wedding. Because what happens on a wedding? He marries her, she marries him, they marry each other, and they unite their powers together into one family. And so the Kabbalistic mystics of 16th and 17th century Tzfat imagine that as the Sabbath comes, we celebrate a great cosmic wedding. We bring God's gentleness and God's power together as one. We bring our caring gentleness and our power together as one. And for at least the period of a Shabbat, the world and God are healed. And that union, that marriage, is sung about in a beautiful song composed by Luria's student, Shlomo Halevi Alkabetz. It's on page 21 in the prayer book. Lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat Kabbalah. Come, my friends, and let us attend to the wedding and make the world whole and one. Herschel, bring us to a wedding. Shabbat Shalom.
Lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat Kabbalat Lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat Kabbalat Shamur v'zachor b'dibur echad ishmi'anu Elam yuchad Adonai echad Ushmo echad L'shem u'l'tiferet B'li Lechadodi Likrat kala Penei Shabbat Nekabla Lechadodi Likrat kala Penei Shabbat Nekabla Likrat Shabbat Lechu v'nei lecha ki mekor habracha merosh mikedem nesucha sof maaseh b'machshavat tchila lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabla lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabla boi shalom ateret vala gam besimcha uvetzohala toch emunei am segula boi chala lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabla lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabla.
The 92nd Psalm is designated by the tradition Mizmor Shir Leyom HaShabbos. even though there's really nothing Shabbos-dik about the psalm, except it begins with this wonderful phrase, Tov lehodot ladonai ulizamer l'shimcha elyon. It is good to give thanks to God and to sing a song to the one on high. Lagid baboker chazdecha ve'emunatcha balelot, to recite all of God's goodness, God's love in the morning and God's faithfulness at night. I take joy in your works. And on the Shabbos, that's what you're supposed to do. Not to change the world or fix the world or adjust the world or make the world different, but to sit back and enjoy the beautiful art, the beautiful work of art that is life, the beautiful work of art that is the world about us. There is work, there is wonder to this world, there's a depth to this world of wisdom that's not apparent right away. It takes some wisdom to understand it. So ordinary people who don't pay attention can't know this, right? That though the powers of wrong, the powers of evil may rise up in our world, they're only temporary. They will be destroyed one day. Because as opposed to God, who is permanent, evil is just a temporary phenomenon. The term Karen Karni Baloti B'Shemen Ranan, V'Tabeit Ena B'Shurai B'Kamim Alai Meraim Tishmana Oznai. I have confidence that my world will be redeemed, and my life will be saved. And the last phrase is the most beautiful. It's an image of old age that all of us aspire to. And the Psalm tells us how you get it. If you live a life of saying Tov, it's good in life. If you understand that the job of life is to push back the evil of the world, but not to see it as permanent, to realize that I can make a difference. I can bring gentleness where there is cruelty, and I can bring peace where there is conflict, and I can bring wholeness where there is brokenness. Well, then, Sadiq hatamar yifrach ke'erez balvanon yiskeh, as opposed to the evil, who were swept away like the morning grass. The tzaddik, one who is righteous, is rooted in the world like a great tree, like a cedar in Lebanon. Shtulim beveit Adonai b'chatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu, rooted in the courtyards of God. Od yenuvim b'seva d'shein v'ranin yu, like a tree rooted beside a stream, beside water, ever filled with fruit, ever filled with vitality, ever filled with energy, ever filled with strength. You never get old. You keep living with ideals and with ideas and with ambitions and with plans and with hope. La'agid ki yashar Adonai, suri v'lo avlatabo, to be able to say on your last day in the world, it was good. God was good to me, and I am satisfied with all the gifts of my life. We take a moment now and remember loved ones, welcome them, the spirit, so that they might enjoy the Shabbos with us. If you're remembering a loved one this Shabbos, if you're reciting Kaddish in memory of someone or reciting Kaddish for yard site, then join us, please. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, v'yalmad yivrach hirutei, v'yamlich malchutei b'chai echon v'yom echad, u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'galau v'zman kariv yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach, le'olam ol me'omaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnasei, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shemei dekud shabrichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. And now we begin the Mariv prayers. You'll find it on page 28 in the prayer book. Ask everyone to stand if you possibly can and join the cantor in the recitation of the Baruch Hu.
Hamevorach Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Hamevorach Leolam Vayed Hamevorach Hamevorach Leolam Vayed Baruch Adonai Amvorach Leolam Vayed Umavir Yom Umavir Lailach Umavir Yom Avene Laila Adonai Tzvaot Shemo Yenechai V'Kalayam Tamid Yimeloch Aleinu Leolam Vayed Baruch Atah Adonai Amariv Haravim. Please join me on page 29, Ahavat Olam. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amecha V'dah, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu, V'shochveinu v'kumeinu, Nasiach b'chukecha, V'nizmach b'divrei toratecha, U'v'mitzvotecha, Leolam Vayed. Ki em chayenu, Ve'orech yameinu, Uba'em negei yomam v'layla, Ki em chayenu, Ve'orech yameinu, Uba'em negei yomam v'layla, Ki em chayenu, Ve'orech yameinu, Uba'em negei yomam v'layla, Ki em chayenu, Ve'orech yameinu, Uba'em negei yomam v'layla. Ve'avatcha al tasir mimenu leolamim, Baruch Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Together the Shema, page 30. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam B'shivdecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha b'derech u'shorbecha uv'kumecha u'ksharetam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot be'etecha u'visharecha. Silently to the conclusion of the Shema on page 31 in English or Hebrew. On page 31, 6 lines from the top, the end of the Shema. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני
Adonai
אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם. Amen.
We all have a story we tell about ourselves. And the story we tell ourselves is a story we construct. It's not just the things that happen to us, because an infinite number of things happen to us in life. It's a question of which ones we assign importance to, which ones are remembered, which ones are elevated into symbolic of who and what we are. The Jewish people, over thousands of years of existence, have an infinite number of experiences, collective experiences. But there's one experience in particular that we chose as emblematic of everything we are and everything that we hold dear and everything we believe in. And that's the experience of Egypt. And there too, a remarkable choice was made, a choice made very early in our history. Instead of saying we were slaves in the land of Egypt and carrying around anger and bitterness and victimhood from that experience, we said instead we were liberated from the land of Egypt. And we remember that moment of liberation. If you had to choose one moment in that story, the moment that is so important is the moment on the other side of the Red Sea. Having escaped from Pharaoh, having run across the sea to escape from his last effort to destroy us, having watched him washed away with the waves of the sea, we suddenly found ourselves standing on the other side, the beginning of the wilderness, and felt what it was like to be free people, to be liberated from bondage, to be given the opportunity to make our lives as we would have them, to raise our children in freedom. And at that moment, we understood that is the way history is. That's who we are. And so we draw implications from that. We believe in a God who cares about human destiny in the world. We believe that freedom is sacred. We believe it is our responsibility to create a world where no one is enslaved and no one is oppressed. And we believe in a world of Shabbat, a world where every week a human being takes a day to throw off the shackles of the economy, to not just be a producer, not just be a wage earner, not just be a laborer, not just be a worker, but to be fully human and apprehend all of the gifts and joys and wonders of being alive. And so Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim, in memory of the experience of leaving Egypt, every week we make Shabbos, and we sing the song that our ancestors sang at the other side of the sea, page 32, Michamocha Ba'ilim Adonai.
Michamocha Ba'ilim Adonai. Michamocha Nedar Bakodesh Noerat Yilot Hosei Fer Malchut Charovnecha Bokei Yayam Lifnei Moshe Ze'elianu ve'yameru Adonai Meloch le'olam va'ed. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני אל יעקב וגיירו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גוי ישראל.
Amen. And we ask God for protection tonight and the sweet, sweet blessing of peace Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom. Let us lie down tonight in peace, O God. V'amidenu malkenu l'chaim, and raise us up in the morning refreshed and renewed to life. Ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha. Spread above us tonight a shelter, a sukkah of your peace. V'tachnenu b'etzat tova milfanecha, v'hoshienu leman shemecha, v'yagen bi'adenu v'yaser mi'aleinu, oyev, dever, v'cherev, v'rav, v'yagon. Remove all that frightens us and all that disturbs the peace of the nighttime. Satan milfanenu mi'acharenu, v'tzel kanafecha tastirenu, ki el shomorenu matzilenu ata, ki el melech hanun v'rachum ata. Spread above us your wings and protect us, because you, God, are the God of peace, of wholeness, of love, and of protection. Ushmor tzetzenu uvoenu l'chaim u'l'shalom mi'ata v'ad olam. Ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha, baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukkot shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. Praised are you, God, who spreads a shelter of peace over us, over Yerushalayim, over all your people everywhere, and over the world. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et Shabbat. The people of Israel shall make the Shabbat as a sign, a covenant between them and God. The next page, page 34, Cantor.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, כי שאיש ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. The Kaddish we continue on page 34. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי, וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה, בגלה, ובזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעלמי עולמיה יתברך. וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו. לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, אמירון בעלמא ויאמרו Amen.
Take a few moments now for personal quiet prayer. The words of the Amidah found on page 35, or just a few quiet moments to reflect on this week past and the Shabbos that is about to come. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amchavi al Kol Yoshvei Tevel Tasim Leolam. Spread great peace over us, over Israel, over all the people of the world. Ki ata melech adon lekol shalom, because you, God, are the source of all that is peaceful and all that is whole in the world. Tov be'enecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol etu b'chol shah b'shlemecha. May it always be good in your eyes to bless your people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai hamivarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. Cantor, let's finish with Kaddish and Aleinu L'Shabeach.
Yidgadal v'yidgadal shmei rava Lemadi v'lechanudim yamim mavazeh V'chayich v'ru yomechonu v'chayro b'eit Yisrael V'galav v'zman kari v'yimeru Amen Yehi shmei rabba mevorach Le'olam v'olam me'olam haya Yidvarad v'yishtabach V'yitpor v'yitroma v'naseh v'yidadar v'yidala v'yidalal Shemei dekudesha Berichu Leila mikol b'chata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechavata Dam yiran b'yolma v'meru Amen תתגבר שלא אותנו ואותו לך ישראל קודם אבוני בשמיה ממרו אמן שלום הרבה משמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ממרו אמן עושה שלום ממרומל הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל וימרו Amen. Aleinu 51. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות ולא שמנו כמזבחות האדמה שלא שם חלקנו כאב ויגור עלינו ככל עמונם ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים אל יפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל שכינתו זו ושכינתו זו בגובי מרומים הוא אלוהינו אין עוד אמת מלכנו וזולתו ככתוב בתורתו וידעת היום והשיבות אל לבבך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ ויתחת אין עוד
Al kein nekave lecha Adonai Eloheinu Rabbi Harabba Tiferet Not kakatuv b'Toratecha Adonai Yimloch le'olam va'ed.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
On the days between Pesach and Shavuos, we count each day as the Omer. Tonight, last night was night number 40, so you can figure what tonight is. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfiras haomer hayom achad va'arba'im yom shehem chamisha shavuot v'shisha yamim la'omer. Today is day 41, which is 5 weeks and 6 days to the Omer, which means we're about a week away from Shavuos, which is a wonderful, wonderful celebration of Jewish life and Jewish learning. We want to invite all of those who recite the Kaddish in memory of a loved one, observance of Yartzeit, to join us now once again. You'll find the words of Kaddish on page 52. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. V'yalma divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chai echon v'yom echon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael b'agalau v'zman kari v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'me'omaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnasei v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudsha brichu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechemata damiron be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlom Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. We ask God's blessings of peace for everyone in our community, for everyone who is davening with us tonight and all the community. A quiet Shabbos, a Shabbos of peace. Cantor, I have a little wine here. Shall we finish together with a little Kiddush?
With great honor. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei periagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu mitzvotav v'ratzovanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'yahava u'ratzon, Ilchilanu zikaron lemahasei v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh, zecher litziyat Mitzrayim, ki evanu v'achareta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, Shabbat kodecha be'ahava u'beratzon imcholotanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. Good Shabbos. So a couple of announcements before we conclude. First of all, thank you, Cantor Fox, for a wonderful spirited davening, and welcome everyone to a wonderful Shabbat davening. Nice to have all of you with us. Tomorrow morning, we will have Torah study at 9 o'clock here on Facebook and YouTube. At 10 o'clock, we have Shabbos davening live from Valley Beth Shalom with Cantor Fox and me once again. And Yossi Dresner is helping us with the Torah, of course. Following that at 11:30, Rabbi Silverman's comments on this week's Torah portion. In the afternoon, Yossi will be leading us in afternoon davening, and then Havdalah tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. Sunday minyan at 8:30 in the morning, Sunday evening at 6, and every morning in the week, minyan at 7:30 in the morning and 6 o'clock in the evening. On Wednesday night, College of Jewish Studies will commence. We're talking about the great questions of Jewish thought, questions that won't go away. And this week, we're talking about Jewish ethics, how to maintain your goodness in a world filled with corruption. So please join us on Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock. Next Friday night, we will have davening live from VBS. We're going to be celebrating all of the kids in our community who are graduating high school and going off to begin their lives in college and elsewhere. So we'll have a big group of young people with us next week. But join us here on Facebook and on YouTube, or come and join us at the synagogue if there's room, and a wonderful celebration of Shabbos. And then Shabbos mornings, we're back in person again, and love to see everyone at the synagogue. I want to wish you a very happy and healthy and sweet Shabbos. Take care. Let there be peace for us and for everyone. Shabbat